that's everything we're going to need. So the first need, do you get it?
We love to wind her up with conversations about just random things.
This did not start as a wind-up.
And now you've got a lovely orange. You can peel your orange, eat it, healthy, and then you won't feel bad for eating 25 slices of your loaf when it's finished.
We decided to have a 10-minute full dissection of the phrase over-egging the pudding.
This is random. I always wash my fruit before I eat it. That's really random, and Dan might cut that out.
Bryony was not remotely interested in this conversation.
She was not remotely interested.
She was extremely bored. She was in fact looking forward to going to university and leaving us behind.
The very top surface of the rind is wet. I recommend you try not to drop your orange into your mixture.
I'm thinking of like wheat.
Oh.
Would that be
Is that stalk or a stem?
Is that a stalk or a stem?
Now you can see why Bryony gets so bored. Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring Kay's Classic Bakes.
Yes, indeedy.
Oh yes, it's back and it's epic.
It is.
Because it's seasonal.
It is.
You can't beat seasonal cooking.
No.
All the top chefs talk about that. They do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Being seasonal, really important. And when we say seasonal, we mean Eastery, baby.
It's Eastery. Very Eastery.
Now, Easter, for me, I don't know why, but it was always the best. I much preferred it, even to Christmas.
Did you?
I did. So many happy memories. Simnel cake, boiled eggs, and hot cross buns. Not all together.
I'm not doing boiled egg today.
Oh, do you know what? Every Easter, me and my brothers used to boil eggs.
Hard boil.
Hard boil them.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Yeah.
We would then
Paint them.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would paint them. And then there was a hill. It's gone now. There was a hill outside our house. And it was always...
How can the hill have gone?
Because when when the house that I grew up in, I mean...
You always say our house, don't you, even if you don't live there anymore?
Amazing story, really. My grandparents, in the 50s, they worked in York and they lived in York and they were travelling around thinking, we want to move out into the country somewhere. And they used to drive around these villages and they sat at the top of this lane and they saw this little cottage nestled in some trees and they're like, we've got to buy it. And it was owned by the government because it used to be part of it was a military hospital.
Yeah.
And then it became a women's prison. And they wanted to buy this property that was attached to it because it had been like a stately home.
It was the lodge,
the property it was attached to.
Yeah.
The house was not a stately home.
No, it was just a little cottage at the entrance to...
As much as Kay says this quite often, I did not grow up in Brideshead Revisited.
No, he didn't, no.
But they saw this cottage and they're like, yeah, we've got to buy it. So they bought it. And then my uncle, he was studying to be an architect.
Right.
And so he did the drawings. And then it was all like pulling in favours because my grandpa, he was a manager for Halfords. And back then, Halfords was like the business. And they knew everybody. So like builders and everything. So they called in all these favours. They got the house built, but not built. They got the house renovated. And in the process of renovation, it created a lot of rubbish. Spoil. So they dumped it at the end, literally at the end of the property, right in the corner of the property. By the time they'd finished the renovation, it had grown over.
So it's like a mound.
My gran was like, oh, that's quite pretty.
I'll leave it.
Let's leave it there.
Right.
So they did. So at the end of our house, because York is actually quite flat,
Yeah,
at the end of our house, there was this mound. And it was big, Kay.
Was it?
Yes. So what used to happen was, every Easter, my mum would get out the scythe.
Right.
It was a
scythe?
Yes.
Gosh, we've gone back to Larkrise times now with a scythe.
We're in Larkrise times. She would get out the scythe. She would scythe down a walkway up the hill because it was literally covered in nettles and gorse and everything. It was terrifying.
Right.
But she would scythe down. There would be a path up, and then she would scythe a runway down the hill
for the eggs.
Right. We would then climb to the top of the hill up the path, and we would then roll the eggs downhill, and the one that got down to the bottom without cracking was the winner.
Excellent. What did you win? A chocolate egg, maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not sure how thrilled you would be with a hard-boiled egg.
Oh, no. Well, back then.
I don't
Three
know.
growing boys.
Maybe.
A pickled egg,
I suppose
maybe.
you'd eat... Oh, no, pickled eggs. Oh, please, don't even.
To be honest, what used to happen was, if you like won something, because we used to always be doing like competition-y type things. If you won something, you got first choice of, maybe she'd made some lovely sandwiches, or there'd be something that she'd made, because we'd all got lovely Easter eggs anyway.
Yeah.
But oh no,
sounds fun. I wish I'd been.
Do you know what? I vaguely remember there being something that you dipped your hand into, and
your mum won't remember if you asked her.
No, she can't remember what she was doing.
She can't remember anything these days. God love her.
You dipped your hand into a little basket,
right,
and pulled something out.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was great. But that was the boiled eggs element. Simnel cake was when I was at choir. Hot cross buns, though. Today, Kay is picking up on the hot cross bun theme.
Yes.
What are you making, Kay, in Kay's Classic Bakes?
I am making a hot cross bun loaf. So it's honestly, I'm honest. I know I've said this before, right?
Forget
I know I've said
every
this
time before.
Yeah, but it's honestly the best thing that I've ever made.
It's like sinking your teeth into a lovely soft pillow.
It's the most delicious thing ever.
It is.
And luckily, in the process of filming, because of the way that the loaf is made, I had to actually have two on the go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to film it all in one go.
Oh, so brilliant,
in one shoot. So I had to make two. So that by the end of that day when we'd filmed, we had two left. And
isn't life hard?
We did a little trial and we froze one of them, didn't we? We cut it in half and froze the two halves, and we had some of it yesterday, defrosted it, had some of it toasted, and it was absolute perfection.
I mean, I can tell you through
you can
experience that if you recall in Kay's Cozy Kitchen, she showed you how to make spelt bread.
Yeah.
And spelt bread freezes
beautifully,
like a dream. And this is very similar.
And this is similar because it's made with spelt flour.
Yes.
And, you all know I've been using spelt flour for, a few years now. And this recipe is specifically for spelt flour, so I haven't tried it with a normal bread flour.
It's good enough for the Romans,
but
it's good enough for us.
If you've never tried spelt, I would really encourage you to track some down. It's really not that difficult these days. It's in our local supermarket, It's not a problem.
Everywhere seems to have it. Yeah.
Everywhere seems to have it. It's not a problem to get hold of.
No.
But yeah, you honestly, I can't encourage you more to make this particular recipe because it is just utterly delicious. And I think Easter morning, you have one of these fresh from the oven. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I would say any morning.
Any morning.
But, hey ho.
Literally.
That's just me.
Any morning.
Look, we are in the process of making every second count. That was a quiz show.
Was it?
Every second counts. I think Paul Daniels presented it.
That sounds familiar
I
to me.
know. Look, we'll research that and come back to you later.
Yes.
We're in the process of making every second count with our daughter Bryony. Lots of final things happening.
Yeah.
Last night, for example, we had a final parents' evening.
Yeah.
So, because we're ticking down the time to end of school and start of university.
Yeah.
And we've been really enjoying having lots of really sort of interesting conversations with her recently, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, no, we love we love to wind her up with conversations about just random things.
This did not start as a wind-up.
Oh, no, it didn't. That is true, it didn't. We were really interested in this conversation. And what we didn't know was Bryony was sat at the dinner table with like a head in her hands going, oh.
Look, the first conversation was a bit like this. We decided to discuss estate cars. Now, if you are in America, you may know these as station wagons. So the conversation went along the lines of, why is it called an estate car? Why is it called a station wagon in America? Yeah. And it went on for a good 5 or 6 minutes.
I don't know where it came from.
It even got to the point of you finding pictures of estate cars, showing them to Bryony. Bryony's going, why are you showing me this? And Kay says, it's important you know, you're an adult now.
I can't even remember how the conversation started, to be honest. But I think something obviously triggered it. And I said to Bryony, do you know what an estate car is? We must have mentioned it. And she's just like, no.
She's like, I'm a girl. I don't care what estate cars are. So
So,
Next day, we decided to have a 10-minute full dissection of the phrase over-egging the pudding.
Yeah.
And we actually established that phrase began in Whitby in the 1870s. And it was listed in this particular book of commonly used phrases in Whitby. And that's the earliest known reference to over-egging the pudding. And yes, it does, for all of you out there wondering what pudding it's referring to, it is, of course, a Yorkshire pudding.
Yorkshire pudding. I guessed that, didn't I, when we were talking about it?
Bryony was not remotely interested in this conversation.
She was not remotely interested.
She was extremely bored. She was, in fact, looking forward to going to university and leaving us behind. So the next day, I said to Kay, I know what we should do. Let's deliberately have a really boring conversation to wind Bryony up.
We were like, what can we talk about that's really boring?
And then it came to us.
Yeah.
Roads.
Let's talk about roads.
Let's talk about the history of roads.
Yeah.
So Kay was brilliant. It was like being in a room with Audrey Hepburn.
I know, so I had to act my way into the conversation without laughing my head off.
She was brilliant. She's brilliant. You know, we were talking about cars the other day, she said. It made me start to wonder about roads. And the history of roads. How did roads get to be there? Well, I was off.
So Dan was like,
yes,
thoroughly interested in this topic.
Was even talking about the layers of a Roman metalled road.
Poor old Bryony was sat there going, oh no, not
that was the point. It was brilliant. That's the point where she's like, what are you guys talking about?
What are we talking about now? Can we not talk about something interesting?
So we owned up. We said, look, the worst part was, she said, oh, so all 3 times you were trying to wind me up. We were like, no.
No.
It was just the final time.
They were genuine, we were genuinely talking about things we thought were interesting.
The worrying thing was, we were really interested in the history of roads.
We were. Yeah.
So Kay came up with this great idea. She said, I know what we'll do. We'll look up a topic to talk about. We're so sad. So, was it...
I googled something like dinner party topics or something.
You should talk about people you admire.
Oh, yeah, one of them was. Yeah.
So Kay said to Brian.
Who do you admire?
Yeah.
Who, who are the people that you admire? So
she said that to Brian, and Brian sat there for a minute, and she's like thinking. And then she said, you two.
Oh. It was a genuine thing. She said... I was thinking that straight off, but I didn't know if I'd sound silly saying it. And we'd been winding her up for 3 days with these conversations, and then she just comes out with that, and we were like, oh,
we had to take a moment.
Sweet.
Yes. And suddenly, the moment where we have to drive away from.
No, I can't even think about it. You have such. I mean, a lot of you will have gone through this, won't you?
Yes.
And I've got such mixed feelings right now about the whole thing. Part of me is excited for her. And I kind of think as long as she's happy, if she's happy and everything's cool, I feel like I'll be all right,
It'll take her, it'll take her 2 or 3 weeks to settle in, but then she'll be fine.
It's going to take her some time to settle in, but she knows the city well that she's going to. She knows it really well. She's really familiar with it. She's very comfortable there.
Yeah. Knows her way around.
Knows her way around.
It's going to feel a bit like home.
And she's actually excited at the prospect of meeting new people.
Yeah.
We were saying to her, are there any friends that are going to the same university? And actually there is one, I think, one of her good friends that will be going there.
The girl with the brightest smile.
She's lovely. She's a lovely girl. But then she came back and she said, I actually don't want to know anyone.
Yeah.
I want to, meet new people and I want to make new friends.
Perfect.
So, I mean, that's a brilliant attitude, isn't it?
That's what you want.
But then, on the other hand, you just think about her bedroom being empty and I'll not think about it.
No, you're going to love it because we're going to be able to do all the things that we've wanted to do in that bedroom. And then when she comes home at Christmas...
Yeah, Bryony's bedroom is still like she's 12 because she's just not let me change it.
The thing is, though,
terrible.
After she's done 1 term at university, she's going to come back much more of a woman.
That is true.
So she will accept
that is true.
and love whatever we do to that room.
That is true.
So she's not going to mind at all that it becomes a games room for me. And that she's sleeping on the floor in the kitchen.
No, we wouldn't do that.
Look, that's more than enough waffle.
That's a lot of waffle, isn't it?
We took a look at some gorgeous projects.
Yes.
So without further ado, I shall ask Kay Jones, what on earth is on that lovely blocker? Ooh, you caught me off guard.
I know. Well,
it looks like a what's off your needle, but it isn't.
No. This is very definitely on my needles.
What's on your needles?
Thank you. So my first project is actually something really special and really exciting. And I've got 3 samples of it to show you, which is a first, I would say, I think. I don't even know a time when I've had 3 of the same thing to show you. So this stems from the fact that in May this year, at the beginning of May this year, we will have been doing this show for 10 years. 8th of May 2014, we put out our first video show. And, you know, that's something worthy of marking, I think. You know, we're not ones for hoopla, really. But I felt like I wanted to do something to mark it, because in the world that we live in, you know, in this kind of fickle, transient, changeable world that we live in, you know, for us to be still here with you after 10 years. So, of course, the best thing I can do, really, is to design a new pair of socks, because that's what I love. You all know I love knitting socks, I love designing socks. It really is my favourite thing to do. So that's what I've done. And I'm going to be putting out this sock design on the 8th of May. And by chance, we actually film a show on that day, on the 8th of May. You won't see it until the 10th of May, I think it will be. But we will film on the 8th of May, which is kind of weird, isn't it? So yeah, I've designed a pair of socks, and when I was designing this pair of socks, I wanted it to be a scrappy pair. So it's socks where you can pull all your favourite bits of yarn out of your stash and you can make a pair, or conversely you can use mini skeins or whatever you want to do, really. And I wanted it to be like that because for me, the first pair that I'm going to show you, I've used yarns that are all of the yarns. I think there's 15 yarns in the first pair I'm going to show you, and I dyed them all. So it makes it like super special. And I think it's a really good way of making a really special pair of socks as well, isn't it? Being able to use those precious little bits of yarn to knit up a pair of socks. And then I've got another 2 samples because I love the design so much that I wanted to see, first of all, what it looked like in just a solid tonal yarn. So I've done that. I dyed some yarn and I've started a pair in just one colour and they're looking beautiful. And then the 3rd sample is using mini skeins. So I've got a nice selection, really. So the design itself is inspired by quilts, by a certain quilt design. Because again, when I was thinking about this and it being a really special pair of socks, I just thought, you know, a lot of people out there also like making quilts, and quilts are a really special thing, aren't they? Quite often you will use little bits of leftovers and they become kind of heirloom pieces. So I started looking around, like the jelly roll blanket, that came from a quilt design, you know, a jelly roll quilt. I did the same thing. I started looking at lots of different classic quilt designs. And one that really took my eye, I needed something that was quite bold and simple in its construction because it didn't want to be too fussy for me to transfer it into something in knitted fabric. It needed to be something quite graphic, if you like, to make that possible. And I came across a quilt and I think I saw... This is a really popular quilt. Quilters out there will know this quilt, but I saw, I think, Kate from Last Homely House, she was making one. And that one made me go and have a look, and I found loads of other examples. But the quilt is a half square triangle. Is that what it's called? I think it is, isn't it? Half square triangle quilt. And I looked at it and I thought, I think I can do something with that. So I got my pen and pencil out, and I came up with a pattern that I needed something as well that's going to fit 3 sizes of socks. You don't need to know my whole process, do you? I don't need to talk you through the whole process. But what I came up with, the stitch pattern, is that magical sort of combination of being quite a short row repeat along with a stitch count that fits all 3 sizes. It's perfection. And I love knitting this so much, and that's the reason why I've got 3 samples on the go. So I'm going to show you the first sock. I've got 1 sock completed, half a sock completed in this pair, and then I'll show you the other ones. And then I can explain the sort of stitch pattern. So here is the first sock. So as you can see, it's lots of different yarns. And when you look up close at the stitch pattern, it's made up, each of these, as you look across the row, you'll be able to see little squares, and within the squares, half of it, the triangle across the sort of, you know what I mean, half of the square is in reverse stocking stitch and half is in stocking stitch. So hence you've got 2 half triangles in each square. And I just absolutely love it. The stitch pattern is such that when you change yarns, you get a really clean change. It's really crisp and clean where you change. I've put in a garter-edged slip stitch heel, French turn, decreases, and then my umbrella toe down here, and it's a 2x2 rib because that flows really nicely into the stitch pattern. Now the best thing for me about this sock, and I'm going to take this one off the blocker to sort of demonstrate it, this hasn't been washed as such yet, this is straight off the blocker, but if I hold up the sock, I hope you can see how sort of poofy and squishy it is. If I do that, it's really, really squishy, and it feels like a really gorgeous quilt. It's got that quilted squishiness to it. And I gave this to Bryony the other night, and I said, just feel that sock. And she did this, and she went, how have you done that? Because it feels super squishy. It's the sort of squishiest, bounciest sock I've ever made. And if I hold it, can you see there at the angle? If I hold it at the right angle, you can see just how squishy it is. And it's, it uses knits and pearls. And is that not like the best thing ever? To just produce such a lovely, well, I think, a lovely sock that just uses knits and pearls and is so versatile. Like I said, I've used 15 different yarns in this. I dyed all of these. And I just randomly placed them. I worked down the sock and just thought, right, what's going to look good coming next? So that's the first sample, and I've got the second one on the go here. I'm just on the heel flap of the second one. Super lovely. And then I've got 2 other samples just to show you. So I'll show you first of all the next one that I started. This one I haven't done that much of yet, but this is the one that I'm working with a tonal yarn. I dyed up this yarn and I wanted like a sort of pink but leaning slightly peach, because you know that I keep going on about peach, don't I? So I thought, why not embrace that for this? So I created this yarn, which is so pretty. So it is, I think, some people might say it's pink, some people might say it's peach. I think it's somewhere in between. It's just a gorgeous colour. And I've started just a little shorty sock. So I thought this pair I would make shorties because I just wanted to see how it would look in one colour. And I think it's fantastic. It's so lovely. Again, it's equally as squishy, but I think it just looks so lovely. So I've got that one on the go. That's going to be a little shorty pair. And then the third pair I'm super excited about. I started these only 2 days ago, and I wanted to do a pair that had less colours than this one. So this is 15 colours. So I wanted to do one that had a few less yarns. And I used a mini skein bundle. Let me get all the yarns out. From Polka Dot Creek, and these bundles are part of Shelley's blanket club for this year. She's running a blanket club because I didn't know about this until recently. Shelley actually told me, but she's running a blanket club for my Stitching Time blanket, and she's producing bundles of minis. There's going to be 12 through the year, so that people can knit themselves a stitching time blanket. So the bundle I'm using, is the April bundle. Now these actually, I did check with Shelley, and she said it was fine to talk about them now, because these bundles are going to be in Shelley's shop today as we put this podcast out, which is on the Friday. 1st of March. I was trying
Too much
to work.
information.
1st
All
of March.
I need to know is it's cool.
All right. Yeah, all of what Dan just said. So yeah, the bundle I'm using is from Shelley at Polka Dot Creek, and it's the April Blanket Club. And in this mini bundle, you get 9 10-gram minis, because my stitching time blanket, each of the blocks are 9 squares big. So hence 9 10-gram minis. So I pulled out one of these and I was like, gosh, do you know what? I think this will work. And it was a magical thing, because...
It was especially a magical thing because you'd put the order in for some yarn.
Yeah.
And she thought, oh, I'll just pop in a little gift.
Yes.
And she didn't know what you were going to do with this little gift.
No.
All this is like totally like...
No, yeah, she did, which was super lovely of her. And I thought, do you know what? I can make these work. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, right, just let me get my design book out and I'll just have a look and see how it's going to fit in with the sock and see if 9 colours will work. And when I looked at my sock, I realised that if I knit, because I've done, you can see the thickness here of each colour, but if I do double that for each colour, 9 fits perfectly into it. And I was like, this is like fate. This is absolutely like fate.
The whole thing is fate.
It really is.
Because you didn't even know that she watched the show.
No.
So you ordered some football yarn and...
Yeah, I ordered the 49ers
all of this
yarn
comes
from
out
her.
of that.
I know, it's
crazy.
just amazing how it all worked out.
Wheels within wheels, Kate.
It really is. So the April yarns I chose to use are all peach themed. Yeah, I know. I'll go off peach at some point, but whilst you're in that zone, I think you should embrace it. I certainly am. So this is where I'm up to on this sock, and it's just the prettiest thing ever. I've just finished the leg, and what I will do with this sock is that this colour here that I'm on now, this will kind of go around the heel. So I've done half of the amount here. I'm going to work the heel, and then the other half will go the other side of the heel. And that's how I've got it to work out perfectly. But the colours are just gorgeous in this, absolutely gorgeous. And I'm placing them so that I get a nice contrast between each of the colours. The one I'm looking forward to putting in the most is this one. Oh, really gorgeously speckled. Just so lovely. And again, look how thick. If I hold it, I'm just so excited by this fabric. Can you see? Look, you can see, can't you, there, how just gorgeous and thick and squishy it is. Oh, it's lovely. So yeah, this is the third sample, and I cast this on one afternoon 2 days ago, and within the space of that afternoon, I knit to here. All of that. I could not stop. And the other thing that was just making it absolutely like just an amazing couple of hours was when I was working on this, I was listening to an audiobook. And this audiobook I've just absolutely loved. I'll get Dan to link it below. It's by Imogen Martin. And it's just such a fantastic story. I've just got about an hour and a half left. And she's just such an amazing writer. She's completely new to me, and I just randomly came across her. And I've listened to both books that she's got out now. And this one I'm listening to is set on the Oregon Trail in the mid-1800s. And it's just fantastic. And I was completely in the zone with this book. It was just so amazing for my brain, you know. I was listening to my book. I was completely there in this story. And then I was knitting along on this. And it was perfection. It was such a fantastic couple of hours I had working on this. So it makes this sock even more special, because now every time I pick it up, I'm thinking about that book, and I'm back in that zone, and I'm on the Oregon Trail in my covered wagon, and it just fantastic. So yeah, these, did I even tell you the name of these? I don't think I did. In my excitement. So I've called these Scrappy Quilt socks because that's what they are. You know, they're based on a quilt and they are scrappy. You know, you can do, like I've done, you can do mini skeins, you can use leftovers, you can do them in a solid colour. And the other thing I want to try as well is with a DK weight. Oh my goodness, I think they would be like the squishiest thing in the world in a DK weight, so I might have to try that too. So yeah, this pattern will not be out until the 8th of May. And I know that's a little bit of time to wait, but, you know, I'm enjoying the process of doing lots of samples. And I think, you know, I just want to immerse myself in it. And I need a little bit of time to do that, you know, to work through the samples and then get the pattern written up, get it through testing, all of that. So 8th of May is when this will be out. And I'm super excited, as you can probably tell. It's just so lovely. Dan Jones.
Yes.
What's on your needles?
Look at this. It's my gorgeous yarn. How do you say that actual... Oh, no, it's not on there. It just says Regia Merino Yak, because that's what it is.
How do you say what? The S word?
Yeah. Where's the S word? It's gone.
It is on there somewhere.
I'm sure it used to say it up on the badge. It did, because when we did the review for it, they got rid of that word because it's too hard to say.
Oh, no, there it is.
Go on, say it. She can't do it.
It's something like Schackenmeier.
Oh, yes. Nice. So, gorgeous yarn, perfect for colour work. Came back beyond the Oregon Trail, but I'm in a horse and carriage.
Oh.
I'm on my way to Pemberley.
Oh, yes.
I'm just coming up the hill. The North Tower is ahead of me.
Yeah.
The camera has stayed in position. It's panning with me.
It's your favourite.
I'm with my aunt and uncle.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I'm Lizzie Bennett.
Aunt Gardner. Uncle Gardner.
She's Jasper Carrot's sister, isn't she?
Is she really?
Yes, she is, yeah.
Aunt Gardner. Her aunt?
Yeah.
That's Jasper Carrot's sister?
Yes.
Wow, I did not know that.
That's funny, isn't it?
She's not called Carrot.
I don't think he's called Carrot.
Oh, I don't. That's not his real name. What a stupid thing to say. That is a stupid thing.
And many of you will be wondering who Jasper Carrot is.
That won't be his real name, will it? No.
Many of you will be wondering who Jasper Carrot is. He was on the telly so much in like the late 80s,
early 90s.
He's
a comedian, yeah.
Didn't he do impressions? I think he did.
Yeah, I think he was, yeah.
Quite rubber-faced.
Yeah, he was funny. I always thought he was really funny.
Yeah, really funny guy. And because his daughter, Lucy Davies is related to him.
Yes, she is.
Is it his daughter or is it his nephew? And his
nephew?
His niece.
She's a girl.
Yeah, niece. My apologies.
I'm not sure, but you're right. Lucy Davies is related to her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Lucy Davies said it too. Sincere apologies for going down a Pride and Prejudice rabbit hole, but I'm sure you will forgive us when you consider that the pattern that I'm knitting is Winter at Pemberley.
Yes.
Inspired by Pride and Prejudice. Now, this has been... Oh, it's lovely. I love it. There you go. You're much better. She's like my Debbie...
Can I just interrupt
You're like my
tell
Debbie McGee.
you that those 3 projects I've just showed you are all new cast-ons?
Oh, well, I'm thrilled that you've told me.
Yeah.
But not thrilled.
No. So you will have heard the bing, bing, bing of my 3 cast-ons.
Yes, indeedy. Look at this. It's the Winter at Pemberley Cowl. Each different segment signifies a different part of the story. I'm into the main sort of section now.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely.
Can you see the snowflakes emerging here, look?
And what I'm actually pleased about is the midsection, whilst it's good but not great. In the words of... It's definitely
a bit ruchy.
But it's not pulling in. It's sitting fairly flat, which is good.
Yeah,
Look at the sides.
Yeah. I think it's a lovely soak will do wonders for it.
It has with the Sweetheart Cowl. It has with Hadrian's Cowl.
Yeah.
The Ivy was actually really, really fun to knit. It was really challenging. With doing a wavy line is really... I've never done that before.
No, it was a tricky motif,
the stalk.
I think, wasn't it?
Would that be right to call it a stalk?
The stem.
Stem, thank you.
I was thinking of a bird then.
What's the difference between a stem and what's a stalk? Stalk of a...
Stalk of a...
Of a margarine.
No, stalk does not like that. Like,
Stalk.
I'm thinking of like wheat.
Oh.
Would that be a stalk?
Is that a stalk or a stem?
Is that a stalk or a stem?
Now you can see why Bryony gets so bored.
It's a flower stem, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Look,
what would be a stalk?
people are turning off in their droves, Kate.
I'm just wondering if I can jiggle these stitches about.
Oh, don't worry about it now. There's too many stitches. No.
I think I can look. Do you know if I just jiggle a bit
Look.
with the tension?
Winter at Pemberley, it really does play into my absolute continued love for Pride and Prejudice. And this type of colour work is so much fun. And I think because it's so engaging, what I sometimes find with projects is that they can be so sort of repetitive that they can make me feel sleepy. This never ever does that. It's the perfect, but not so much that you can't like watch something at the same time.
So the motifs represent different things within Pride and Prejudice. So this first one, all the little crosses down here, this represents the necklace that you see Lizzie wearing really often in the TV series, and she often wears just a little plain cross. So that's that one. The ivy is the prettyish sort of wilderness at one end of your lawn. Is that what she says?
Something like that.
Catherine de Bourgh. So that's the ivy.
Should we take a turn in it?
Should we take a turn? I would be grateful if you could. Yeah, something like that. If you would take a turn in it, if you will, or something. And then the snowflakes are, the sort of snowy scene, if you like. There is a portion of the book is set over the winter, and Jane is off in London, isn't she?
And it's winter at Pemberley.
And it's winter.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the snowflakes.
You're excused, Kate.
In the centre.
Yes.
And then it will repeat the other side, so you'll get ivy and then crosses again, and then, yeah.
There's also a TIE fighter motif in it, which I really like.
Is there?
Yeah, there.
Oh, it does look a bit like a TIE fighter, you're right. When you look at...
I've not got to that bit
Oh, no,
yet.
you can see, you can just see it here.
It just started to... Yeah. It's cool.
Between the snowflakes. Can you see the TIE fighter here, look?
The pattern's actually called Darth Vader Comes to Pemberley.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be a crossover?
That's a crossover I'd like to see.
Yeah.
So yes, gorgeous project.
It's lovely.
Thoroughly enjoying knitting it, but I'm way more excited to find out what else is on your needles.
Well, my next thing is actually on my hook.
Oh, now that's exciting.
That is exciting.
Been doing a bit of crocheting.
Crocheting, as lovely Jeanette Clegg would say, a crochet. Oh, I love her so much. That's Crafty Clegg, if you don't watch her. So yes, my next project is crochet. I've started a crochet project, and look, I'm housing it in a new bag, and I'm actually going
That's
to do...
That's interesting terminology.
Housing it, is that not
housing
right?
it? No. It's perfectly fine.
Look at my new bag. Oh, can you see this lovely polar bear here? Oh, he's walking all the way across there.
Bye, buddy.
And there's a narwhal.
Hope you find your dad.
I know. And so it's like a bucket bag, look, with some beautiful handles, and there's pockets here. I bought this recently from the Fibre Fox, which is a UK company, and I'm actually going to do a review of this bag. And the main reason is because it was a really considered purchase, because it was not cheap. And I ummed and ahed about it. And the thing that made me buy it was the fabric print. First of all, I loved the fabric. And also, I really wanted it for this particular project because I just thought it would be perfect. But I did think about it long and hard, and I'm like, gosh, I can't spend that amount of money on a bag, because I could make it, but then I thought it would take me hours to make it, and I'd have to source the fabric. Could I source this exact fabric? And I did try to look up something like Arctic Animals fabric to see if I could randomly find it, and I couldn't. And in the end, I thought the amount of time it would take me and take me away from working, if you like, I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to buy it. And I'm going to do a review on it, and then I will just assess the whole thing and decide whether I think it was worth the money. But it's a lovely, lovely bag. I really love it. And I'm not sorry I bought it. But you do have to consider cost, don't you? And I do think prices in general in our crafty world have gone up. And there's probably lots of reasons for that are justifiable. But that's just a quick observation. So in this lovely bag, I've got a new crochet project, and it's not a blanket, because I knew from experience with crochet that I get a kind of dodgy shoulder if I'm not careful. So I thought, I'm not going to do a blanket, and I don't need another crochet blanket. I've got quite a few. But what I did want to make was a scarf for Bryony, because she loves scarves. And I just thought, oh, do you know, it'd be really nice to crochet her a scarf. That'll be a really nice change. So I'm using the pattern, which is just for a granny stripe blanket, the one that's free on the Attic 24 blog. I'm just using that pattern, but I'm I'm crocheting a scarf. And I'm doing it lengthwise. I thought that would be really fun. So I chained loads. Now, I did write it down, and I can tell you how many I chained, because it was a lot. I chained 344, and that's given me a length of about 68 inches, which I think is about my height. I looked up what that is in feet. I'm 5'6". I think it's about my height. So I wanted quite a long scarf, because their favourite one at the moment is that Advent scarf that I made at Christmas, and that's much longer than the ones she usually has. So I think this will be nice and long. So 344 is what I chained. I'm using fingering weight, just held singly, and a 3mm hook. And I always use these clover. Is it clover amore? Is that how you say it? Or amore? I don't know.
Well, Italians would say amore, I think.
Yeah, so let's be Italian and say that.
And the moon hits the sky like a big pizza pie. That's amore.
Yes, absolutely. Wasn't that like Dean Martin?
That was indeed Dean Martin. The great
joking.
Dean Martin.
I got that right.
You did
I don't
indeed.
know where that came from.
From knowledge came. Knowledge
So yeah,
of music.
I love these hooks. They're lovely. Bryony's favourite colour right now, and has been for a while, is green. So I decided to make her an entirely green scarf. So what I did was I went into my stash and I pulled out every yarn I could find that was remotely green. So some of these lean a little bit blue, some of them have lean a little bit more sort of yellowish, but they're all in that family. So in here, these are the ones I haven't used yet. I've got them kind of separated off. So these are all the ones I haven't used yet. These are all mini skeins from various different dyers. Sherry Iris, Pixie Yarn. I think I've used a couple from Pixie Yarn. I think there's some Fibre Fox in there. All sorts. So just anything that was remotely green. And then there's a few that I've wound up, and I'm winding them up sort of as I go. These are the next ones that'll be going in. So you can see this one's more sort of creamy yellowish, but it does have slight green tendencies in there. And that's fine. And these are all the ones I've used already, because what I'm doing is I'll have to repeat all these. So once I've used them all, I'll then go back and start from the beginning and use them all again, because I've worked out, I think I'll need about 60 rows, because what I want to do is fold it over and have it doubled so it's nice and thick and squishy. So I will show you where I'm up to. I just love this so much. And then I'll show you why there are all these, or I'll tell you why there are all these ends. So this is where I'm up to. Isn't it lovely? What I really love about it is it'll be worn this way. You know, so it's lengthwise. It'll be worn like this. And I really like how the sequence of colours looks. So Bryony actually said to me she wanted it dark light, dark light, dark light going across. And that's turned out to be brilliant, because you get like horizontal rows this way. So you see like rows of dark and rows of light going this way, when actually it's been worked this way. I think that's just brilliant. So what I will do when it's finished is I'll fold it lengthwise like that, and then I'll either seam it or crochet it together down the long edge. I don't know, whichever I think will look neatest. And it might be a case of doing it and then turning it the other way around, might it? Turning it sort of inside out. If that will look neatest to have the seam on the inside. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that at the minute. I suppose it would be quickest to crochet it together, wouldn't it? But then it's just what that would look like. It might look all right. So I've left all the ends. So what I'm doing is just one row of each colour. I'm then cutting the yarn and leaving a big long tail. Starting the next one and leaving a big long tail. And then I'm going to use all of these tails to make some kind of fringe at either end, because it's the same at the other end. The other end's way over here. So I've got all of these sort of ends here. So these will all be doubled together, because it'll be like this, won't it? So you'll have like the fringe, well, it won't be doubled together, you know what I mean? It'll be folded over like that, so you will get more, it'll look like more, won't it? But isn't it lovely? So this is how long it is now. So if I put it round my neck, do you know what it reminds me of, doing it like this? Those things that priests put around their necks.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it reminded me of then.
Vestments.
It was like I was at mass. So this goes like all the way down to well below, it's sort of halfway between my knee and my hip. But there's plenty of room, because what she likes to do is sort of pull it to about this length, and then she likes to wrap around. I've got a cowl on, so this is not working. She likes to wrap around, but that will work. Oh gosh, it's all going wrong now. But isn't it lovely? And all I'm doing is one row every evening. That's all I'm doing. I say all, it's a long row. It's a long old row. But I can get it done in about, it takes me about 25-30 minutes to do that row, because I don't go super fast. I can crochet quite fast, but I try not to, because I don't want to injure myself. So about 30 minutes and I get a row done. So I've just been doing that every evening, and it's just been building up really lovely. And I know I didn't do, you can do, can't you, a chainless foundation row? Is that what it's called? But I never do that, because I really like doing the chain and then working the double crochets into that chain. I don't know why I like doing it, but I just really do. And although it makes this first row here a bit wider, because you've done the chain and the double crochet row, that's the bit where I'm going to seam to it. So I think that will kind of disappear in the seam, and I don't think it really matters, does it? And it's just such a lovely thing, and I think it's a great use for leftovers. I deliberately chose 24. I thought, can I get 24? Because then it feels a little bit sort of festive, doesn't it? And I thought it would be interesting just to see how that would work, because it might be that in the future I want to do one of these with an advent calendar that I might get. I think it would make a nice project for that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It's also the year of 24.
It is.
Yes.
So that works perfectly.
Look at this. It's the wondrousness that has become my Aaron Hop. Well, it'll be Kay's Aaron Hopper-Kenzie, and I've realised something. I've realised something when I get towards the end of knitting jumpers, I start to look forward to giving it to the recipient, whether it be myself or actually, I'm very excited about finishing this and watching you wear it in July.
That would be lovely.
There might be some cool days. Some cool mornings. Okay, late autumn. It will be a late autumn. It's going to look so great with your gardening gilet that we spoke about last time.
Oh, do you think?
I do. I think it'll be perfect.
I'm going to look like Percy Thrower.
This yarn it really is lovely. The fabric it knits up is just great. And I just think the sleeves are gorgeous.
They are.
But then this is so much fun.
This is lovely.
The yoke
I love how this is looking.
The business.
Isn't it beautiful, that?
There's nothing better than knitting a yoke. Ooh. A colourwork yoke. It's so lovely, because there's a lot going on with the colourwork, but then there's decreases too. And it just, the whole experience is just so fun. And The needles are great, and it's really interesting because we spoke last time about how the thin square cubics are a bit too slippy for socks, but as soon as you stick a cable on the back and you're knitting in the round, it changes the whole ball game.
Yeah,
certainly for someone like me.
Different experience with double points and then these.
I can't stand
it catching or anything.
Yeah, I think when you've got wooden ones of these, certainly as I recall, because they're quite grippy, and then maybe you might have a little knobble as it goes over onto the... I just always found myself like pushing and pulling, and it just slides around. It's beautiful. Horses for courses at the end of the day, isn't it?
Colourwork's lovely here.
It looks just tremendous.
It does.
And I think it's really going to suit you. And this colour is just lovely.
The colour's lovely, isn't it?
It's gorgeous. It really will suit you.
I think having that really bright pop of colour near your face as well works really well.
Yeah, definitely.
So lovely.
So it's the Aaron Harper Gansey. Lovely project. And I detail my progress on this and all my garments.
It smells sheepy.
In the self-contained knitter. Yes.
Lovely.
I really love that smell. It's really
not
interesting.
unpleasant at all.
No.
It's really, really nice.
I think it smells even more sheepy than Let Lopey, which is interesting because Let Lopey seems a lot more rustic.
Look at Dan's floats. Are you ready?
With floats.
I know you like seeing floats.
Who does?
Knitters like to see floats, don't you?
Yes. Wonderful.
It's lovely.
What else is on your lovely needles?
So the last thing I've got to show you is actually...
lovely.
It is.
Oh.
It's Dan's socks, and I'm keeping these in this lovely bag from Emma at Eldenwood Stitches.
I thought you were about to say...
Is it Eldenwood Stitches or Eldenwood Craft?
Eldenwood Craft.
I'm getting you mixed up, Emma. I'm getting you mixed up with Elderflower Stitches. Eldenwood Craft is Emma. And I bought this quite a long time ago, actually, but I just love it.
But if ever you become a conglomerate, you've got a name.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say then, I thought you were going to finish that off by saying, I'm keeping these until the new football season starts.
No, these will be finished next time.
It's totally fine.
Because they're planned in. No, these will be finished next time. It's all planned and
of course,
sorted.
This is where the whole Polka Dot Creek journey began.
Absolutely. I am quite obsessed with Shelley's yarn right now, I'll be honest, because it's just so lovely. And I just really...
Had you not bought this, none of the other things would have come about.
Had I not bought this yarn from Shelley...
2 skeins of it.
2 skeins of it.
2 packs.
Yeah, then... No, I mean, I wouldn't have got that lovely Blanket Club mini yarn, and I wouldn't be knitting that other sample, would I? So it's all worked out beautifully. So yeah, I have finished one of Dan's 49ers socks.
And both deliveries came in seconds.
They did. She was excellent. So here is the first finished sock. I absolutely love it. Isn't it fantastic? So this, for a size, for Dan's massive feet, this actually knit up, seemed to be much quicker than normal. Because I just really loved working on it. And it was a combination of the yarn, which is lovely, and those stripes are just gorgeous. And then the stitch pattern that I put in. So all I did, just to make it a bit interesting, and I always think that the knitting goes faster if you have just a simple stitch pattern going on. All I did was I knit 3 rows, and then on the 4th row I did knit 2 purl 2. And it just gives a little bit of texture. But it looks lovely, doesn't it? And I particularly like it where the purl bumps show up, like here. You can see the purl bumps in the colours, and I really think it looks cool. And then it came with a mini of football brown. So I've done heels and toes in football brown. And I've started the second sock, and I'm on the leg. So I did the cuff yesterday, and I've got a little section of the leg to do today, which I started this morning. So what I've done to make sure that this pair is finished for the next show is what I do now with really all of my projects, and it just really suits my brain and how I like to work. I've planned it through, so I break it down. So what I do is I look at this sock, I break it down into sections, and then I divide it all up, and then I work out how much I've got to knit each day, write that in my planner, so I know exactly how much I've got to knit. So I knit it, tick it off, move on to the next thing that I've got to do that day. And it just works perfectly for me. And I know then that I'm going to have a lovely pair of socks to give to Dan next time. So for this first sock, I used, this sock weighed about 43 grams, I think it was. So I used round about 30 grams of the self-striping and then just about 10 grams for the heel and the toe. So I've got the leftover from the first skein, because these were 50 grams. So this is, I did say, didn't I, San Francisco 49ers colourway, I did say. So I've got that left over and I've got the brown left. I did weigh this brown to see if I'd have enough without breaking into the other mini, but there's 11 grams of this left, so I probably could have just done it, but I thought no, what I will do is I'll keep this little set that's left, and then from this next set I'll keep the leftovers from there as well, and I will have enough. There's 20 grams there, there's 10 grams there. I'd have enough to either knit a shorty pair of socks for me or some mitts, so that's brilliant. And I just love them. The yarn's really, it's a 75-25, so it's that kind of standard sock yarn, but it's super lovely to knit with, and I love the colours. Go 49ers, it's the combine, isn't it, this weekend? That's exciting.
You've totally got to knit yourself a pair of 49ers mitts.
Oh, mitts?
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got to.
Well, I've got plenty to knit mitts. So
How much would a pair of mitts take?
One mitt is about 20 grams altogether.
Wow.
So I'd have more than enough. I could do cuffs with that.
Yeah. It has to be. I mean, would you be inspired to do that? Would you enjoy doing that?
Yeah, I'm sure I'd enjoy doing that.
Because I just think
I could put in the same stitch pattern as on your socks, and then we'd be kind of matching, wouldn't it?
It'd just be. I think that you would love them.
Yeah. I do really love fingerless mitts. They're one of my favourite things to knit and to wear. I wear them all the time. Every single day when I go for a walk, I wear a pair of fingerless mitts.
They really take the edge off, don't they?
Yeah, and it means your fingers are out for, if you need to change music or, change your book or stop your run keeper because you've got to cross the road, things like that.
It's really interesting you mentioned the book, because you have been listening religiously to your books recently, haven't you?
Yeah. Rather
than when you've been knitting, and you've been saying that you've been getting a lot more done.
I've been getting so much more done. Normally when I'm working my way, when I'm knitting my way through a design project or any bit of knitting I've got to do through the day, I've usually got something playing, either a series that I'll be watching. I just watched The Gilded Age, which was fantastic. I loved it. I'm watching it again, actually, because it was so brilliant. But I'll either be watching something like that, or I might have a film on, or there might be something on YouTube. But particularly if I'm watching something on YouTube, then I find it really distracting, and I'll stop knitting and I'll look at the screen and I'm like, oh yeah, and then I'll start knitting again. But the difference is, when I'm listening to a book, there's no stopping. There's no interruptions. I'm just listening to that book, and I'm just getting so much more done. So that's a lesson to me, really. And I've been searching this morning and lined up a few more books, because I've listened to audiobooks for years, but generally it's only when I'm out walking in the morning. But doing it this way, it has been brilliant. And like I say, I'm getting so much more done and enjoying what I'm doing so much more, because I'm lost in whatever world I'm listening to, and it's just fantastic. So I couldn't recommend really doing that more. So yeah, that's Dan's 49ers socks, and they will be done next time. Yes, they will.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the fact that I was just putting this back into the bag.
Is that a tail end?
Well, it's coming out of the sleeve. I need to inspect. No, don't cut it.
I'm not going to cut it.
Because I don't know what it is. So I'm going to need to unravel this.
Knowing you, honey, it's a tail.
No, I could. Oh, brilliant. I did not do that.
What?
That is how it came, Kay.
What do you mean?
I didn't do that.
A knot there. Is that what you mean?
There has been a few knots and things in this yarn.
Yeah, there has, hasn't there?
But I've
No,
had to
that's not a joined knot. That's just a random knot.
Maybe it just happened, in the
There
process
we
of
go.
being...
It could have just got tangled, couldn't it? There we go.
In the
I
bag.
suspect it's probably your tail from casting on, because you do have a habit of doing
Well,
that.
it's because... look, it doesn't matter. Folks, it's nearly Easter.
Oh, it is.
Isn't that exciting?
You need to gather your baking supplies, everybody,
Hey.
because you've got to make this.
Before your baking supplies,
Yes.
Kay decided I need to put on a couple of pounds, and so she
He's been
decided
doing
to...
sit-ups like crazy, and he's lost a couple of pounds, and I'm like, don't get too thin. I don't like thin men.
She's decided that, I need to put in a couple of pounds, so she's ordered some things from Hotel Chocolat, and I'm particularly excited
Yes.
about the toast and marmalade thing. What's that?
Yes, it's
Marmalade
like...
on toast, is it?
We were talking about this on the Pop Show, weren't we? Yeah, Hotel Chocolat, if you don't know, a chocolate company in the UK. And I got an Easter brochure through the other day. Well, they have knocked it out the park at Easter.
Yeah.
There's some amazing things in there. And I don't eat chocolate, but
If
I
that
thought
orange
I've
thing is
got
good,
to...
I'm going to go nuts.
I think it might come today, actually.
Oh, no.
It might do. So I placed an
Disaster.
order because I got a discount code, quite a big discount code, because I've ordered before. I'm like, I'm just going to order like something for you, something for Bryony, something for Bryony's boyfriend.
I shall let you know next time
Yes.
what the marmalade on toast was like.
Yeah, it's like a sandwich.
Yes.
It's like a sandwich that you go and buy in like Marks and Spencer's, but it's chocolate.
A chocolate sandwich.
Looks cool.
There's no bread involved.
No.
Didn't they say they'd injection moulded some...
Oh yeah, they'd got a slice of wholemeal bread and they'd used it as a mould or
They
something.
created an injection mould and
I'm
then
like,
poured...
my word,
poured
they've
chocolate
really
in.
gone above and beyond.
Calm
And they
down.
also have these things called tiddly eggs,
Stop it.
which
Kay's
I'm
obsessed
obsessed.
by saying tiddly eggs.
Saying tiddly
You're
eggs.
even more obsessed with tiddly pots.
Yeah, I've ordered a... What was it called?
When it snows, tiddly pot.
What was that chick thing
I don't know.
called?
Look.
Oh, I can't remember. With a tiddly pot. I was like, look, I don't know what that is, but I want it.
It's nearly Easter, and there's only one flavour that signifies Easter for us, and that is the hot cross bun flavour. So back with another Beyond Epic. This is the best ever of any cooking showcase ever done. Welcome back, folks. It's time for another episode of Kay's Classic Bakes.
As I've grown older, I've come to realise I am at heart an old-fashioned girl. Put me in a kitchen baking something wonderful and I am in heaven. There is something very special about baking. It's like chemistry as the ingredients come together to hopefully create something wonderful. This year, I'm going to share with you 6 of my favourite bakes. Along the way, I'm going to add some little twists in my attempt for perfection. Welcome to Kay's Classic Bakes.
So I am back. I'm so excited to be back here in the kitchen with another of my classic bakes. And today is really, really exciting for lots of reasons. One, because this particular bake, I think, has to be one of Dan's very, very favourite things in the whole world. 2, because it's very seasonal. It's something that's associated traditionally with Easter, and we're not far away from Easter now. You know, spring, it does feel like spring is on its way, so that's lovely. And then also, it kind of harks back to the very first thing that I ever baked here with you. And we were literally right here when we did that. And I made Chelsea buns, which this has sort of got a slight flavour of that. I think this is nicer, in all honesty. This is much simpler. There's various stages to it, but it's not tricky. So I need to tell you, don't I, what we're making. Oh, it's so exciting. So we are going to be making a hot cross bun loaf. So not individual buns. We're going to make a loaf, a hot cross bun loaf. So that for me is what makes this kind of simpler. You know, we will go through the whole process of making little hot cross buns, but it's going to be made into a loaf. Now this recipe comes from the Dove's Farm website, so it's fully accessible to everyone. And this is Dove's Farm. It's the brand I always use of spelt flour and other flours, to be fair. I use Dove's Farm as well. This recipe is specifically designed for white spelt flour. I haven't tried it with like a normal bread flour, for example, so I can't comment for how that would turn out with a normal bread flour. But white spelt flour is really widely available now. We see it in all of our supermarkets here. So if you haven't tried spelt, I would really encourage you to give it a go. It's a really fantastic flour. It's all purpose. I make bread out of it, I make cakes out of it, I make biscuits out of it. It's the only flour that I use now, in all honesty. If I need to make it into a self-raising flour, I just add baking powder. It's really no fuss at all. So that's what we're going to be making. Super delicious. I cannot wait. And the other thing I'm going to say to you actually is that yes, this has got some dried fruit in it, and historically whenever I've done a recipe that has dried fruit in it, I do get a lot of people saying they don't like dried fruit, so it's not for them kind of thing. And that's obviously perfectly fine. If you just don't like it, you don't like it. But if you've never tried a hot cross bun, and certainly I think it's unlikely you've tried it in this kind of a format, unless you've made this recipe as well, that would be exciting, then I really would encourage you to try it, because it's not overly fruited, it really isn't, and you don't really notice the fruit because it's so soft by the time that it's gone through the baking process that all it does is add that lovely flavour and fragrance to the whole thing. So I would really encourage you to give it a go. So that's what we're going to be making. So now what I need to do is show you all of the ingredients. So I've got everything laid out here that we're going to need. So I'll go over the ingredients first. So the first thing I'll mention, I've already spoke about it, is the flour. So you're going to need white spelt flour and 300 grams of white spelt. We've got sultanas, that's one of the fruits that's going into here. Now, I wouldn't replace sultanas with any other kind of dried fruit. I think it really does benefit from it being sultanas. Sultanas are much kind of bigger and squishier and juicier than, say, raisins. Definitely currants. Currants are quite hard dried fruit. Sultanas are really nice and soft and squidgy, so definitely I would really recommend sultanas. We've then got cut mixed peel. So this is basically orange and lemon that has been chopped up and glacéed, which means it's sort of cooked in a sugary syrup. Oh, and we're going to need, I didn't say, but the sultanas is 75 grams. And then we're going to need 50 grams of the glacé peel. We've then got 150 millilitres of milk, and this should be tepid. Now, tepid means just you know, very slightly warm. Kind of room temperature, I suppose, is what tepid is. So 150 mils of milk. We've got 2 eggs. I've got some dried yeast here, the quick, fast action dried yeast. An orange. 50 grams of butter, and I'm going to be melting that. So I just melt it in the microwave, just really gently, just until it's just melted. We've got mixed spice. We're going to need a teaspoon of mixed spice. Some sugar, 50 grams of sugar. I've got caster sugar here. It doesn't matter if it's caster sugar or if it's just straightforward granulated sugar. Either is fine. Some salt. We're just going to need a little bit of salt. Whenever I use salt, I either use Maldon salt, which is like a sea salt, and they're big flakes, but for this you want a fine salt, but again this is a sea salt. I can't encourage you more not to use the sort of horrible chemically table salt. I don't like that at all. Again, it's a personal choice. So that's everything we're going to need to make our lovely loaf. And then the sort of baking notions, that's what I used to call them, didn't I? So we're going to need a nice roomy bowl, a loaf tin. You're going to need a 2 pound loaf tin, which I think is a kilogram, and this should be oiled So just get a bit of whatever oil you've got in the cupboard and just make sure that's oiled all the way around. Some measuring spoons, I've got a teaspoon and a 1/4 teaspoon, and then my kitchen scales. And then the very last thing, actually, I haven't used these before when I've made this, but I'm going to give it a go. So these are just disposable piping bags. These ones are really good because they're recyclable. And the Frontala. When I've made this before, I've just used a teaspoon to kind of drizzle the crosses on at the end. But the thing with doing it that way is fine, but it does produce a sort of thicker, less precise little cross. So I thought I'd give piping bags a go. I've never done it before. I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll give it a try. But you don't really need these, but I'm going to give it a go. So that's everything we're going to need. So the first need, you get it? So the first thing that we need to do is make a starter. Right, so we're going to make a starter. Now, you need to do this the night before you want to make the loaf, because it has to be left overnight. When I've made this before, I've done it round about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Now for some of you, before you go to bed might be 11 at night. Whenever that is, just do it as the last thing you do before you go to bed, and then leave it overnight. And then of course the question then arises, when should I make it the next day? These are all mysterious questions, but I'll tell you what I've done. When I've done it before, it's had about 12 hours proving in a cool kitchen. So into my bowl, I'm going to pop my flour, first of all. So we want 300 grams of the spelt flour. And I always use a weighing scale for everything when I'm baking. I know in some other countries that's not as popular, but I couldn't function, you know, baking things and making things without weighing scales, to be honest. I guess it's maybe whatever you've got used to. And then into there we're going to add the sugar, so 50 grams of sugar. So just zeroise your scales and then pop in the sugar. I kind of do it in a different area just so that I've got a little pile in case I need to take some out. What did I say? 50. So that's gone over to 51. It doesn't really matter, but I like to be accurate. There we go, 50. And then we need to pop in the yeast. So we need a teaspoon of the dried fast action yeast. So I just measure this on a measuring teaspoon. There you go. And then the mixed spice and a teaspoon of this. Now my teaspoon won't go in there, so I kind of tap it into the teaspoon. There you go, teaspoon of mixed spice. And then I'm going to just give that all a little stir, just to combine everything. You can see the mixed spice gives it a lovely colour. And it is at this point actually that you start getting the smell of the mixed spice. It's really lovely. So just make sure that's all mixed thoroughly. So now what we're going to do, I've got my milk, which is just got a hair's breadth on it, and I'm going to crack my egg into that and drop that in. So what we're making really here is a enriched dough. I think that's what you would traditionally call it. And then I'm just going to give those two a little beat together. That's fine. And we're just going to pour that in and give it all a good mix. And you'll get a kind of soft, sticky, quite wet dough. Just keep going until you can't see any flour anymore, and then you know that it's all mixed in. We're nearly there. You can see it's definitely a dough, but it is like a super sticky dough. That looks fine. Can't see any flour anymore. And then the last thing we need to do is get your melted butter. Let's give this a little stir up. So we're going to pop in the melted butter, so 50 grams of melted butter, along with 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to pop the salt in and then pour the butter on. 1/4 teaspoon sprinkled in, and then pour on your butter. I always think this looks a bit alarming, but it's all totally fine. And now we want to mix it, but don't over mix it. What you want to do is mix it until you can't see any of that butter anymore. Just combine the butter into it. So I tend to just go a little bit slowly and just give it a mix. And it goes quite quickly into the mixture, but we don't want puddles like that of butter, because if you leave it like that, the butter will harden. We don't want that, we want to combine it into the dough. So this doesn't take very long at all. As you can see, it might take you 10 or 15 minutes before you go upstairs to bed. And it's a lovely feeling to think when you come downstairs in the morning, all you've got to do is add the fruits in, and you know, you're going to have a lovely loaf. And the smell, the other thing I'll say is when I come downstairs in the morning into the kitchen, and actually even before I get to the kitchen, I can smell it. It's really lovely. There we go. Can't see any more butter, but we haven't over mixed it. So now what we need to do is just cover it with another bowl, or if you've not got that, a plate or just something to keep this covered, and then leave it to prove overnight. Okay, so as if by magic, here is one I made earlier. This is now what your starter will look like after it's been given that overnight proving. So it really does poof up. So now it's time to actually, you know, make the loaf itself. So into my mixture that I've got here, I've got a lovely orange here, and I'm going to just take the rind off. So like when you're doing a lemon, we've done that, haven't we? We did that last time. Same thing. So I'm just literally taking off the bright orange rind. You know, we don't want to go down to that paler orange because that's going to be bitter. Don't worry if you don't get every last tiny bit, you know, it's not a problem. That'll be fine. Okay, so give that a tap. So now we're going to put in the glacé peel. So I'm going to bring in my weighing scales for that. And we want 50 grams of glacé peel. And then our sultanas. So 75 grams of sultanas. And as these go in, I kind of break them up because they can clump together in the bag. So I just do that as they go in. There we go. So now this is a really fun part. We get to give this a kneading, because it is a form of bread essentially, this. When you first go into this, it'll be really super sticky, but the more you knead it, it should be a bit less sticky. I've made this before when it's been really sticky and when it hasn't been quite so sticky, and it's all been fine. So don't worry if it is really sticky, we'll just see what happens. So we're just going to go in and gather it all together first of all. And now we're going to give it 100 sort of kneads, but in the bowl, like little sort of presses. So just start turning it over with your knuckles like that, and just do this for 100 presses. And as I get towards the end of this, you can see it is really sticky, and this actually is what it was like the last time I made it. It's totally fine. Just go with it and just keep kneading. And the smell that comes up, it's just amazing. You get a mixture of the citrus, you know, that sort of orangey citrus smell. You get the mixed spice, but then what you also get is a kind of slightly, I think, alcoholic smell. A bit like the smell you get at Christmas, you know, when you're making something and there's no alcohol in it. And I think that must just come from the fermenting overnight. So we're about there, and you can see it is really sticky. That's fine. I just kind of get most of it off my fingers like that, because what we're going to do now is get some flour. It smells so nice. And I just sprinkle a little bit in there first of all, and then also just put a bit onto your work surface, and then just go back in and gather it all together. Just gather it all together. And if you need to put a bit more flour on just to help it all get away from the sides, then do that. And now just plop it onto your work surface, and I just go back in and get the rest off on my hands so that your ball's relatively clean. And then what we want to do is just make it into a nice sort of ball of dough. And just briefly, we're not kneading it or anything like that. We're just forming it into this dough, you know, that doesn't stick, and that we can now divide up. Right, so now we're going to divide this up into 8. So all I do is just cut it in half. It doesn't have to be bang on exact, you know. So just divide it into half, and it will be sticky, but that's fine. And then we know that each of those halves we've got to divide into 4. So I go down the middle, and then roughly down the middle of that. There you go. Just let them sort of drop separately like that. It smells so good, I can't even begin to tell you. So I've got my 8 little pieces, and now we're just going to make each of those, just give it a little bit of flour if it's sticky, and just make each one into a little ball. And then I'm going to bring in my tin, which is oiled, and as I make these into little balls, I'm going to drop them in, and we're going to make 2 rows of 4 running up there. And these really will puff up quite a lot with proving. I was surprised how lovely they puff up. And when we've done this, we are going to set it aside to have a second proving. So just cover it with an uptoned bowl, that's what I tend to do, and pop it somewhere reasonably warm. I just leave it here in the kitchen, you know, room temperature is absolutely fine. And it'll take about an hour, and it'll puff up, and it will definitely double in size. It'll be super lovely and really poofy. So there we go. Our hot cross bun loaf is having its second prove. So come back in part 2 when we're going to reveal that. We're going to do a bit of fancy business on top, and then we're going to get it into the oven. So I'll see you back soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, every stage of this bake is phenomenal, and I shall tell you why. Because the smells that emanate from the kitchen are astounding.
Oh, it's so comforting and lovely, and like a...
Well, it just smells great.
Like a warm blanket.
It's sort of so fun waking up in the morning and smelling what is going to be a gorgeous loaf. I mean, just so unbelievably cool. And I don't know anyone that wouldn't I can't think of anyone that wouldn't like this.
Well,
Even
no.
Bryony likes this.
Bryony likes
Yes.
it, which is amazing. She, normally she's like,
If you gave Bryony a handful of raisins and say eat that, she'd go,
wouldn't-
I'm not eating those.
No, she
They look
wouldn't.
disgusting.
She wouldn't want them, but she
No.
was very happy to eat a slice. She just said, oh, it's just like, well, you know what kids are like. She said, well, it's bread, isn't it? I love bread. I said, it's more than just bread. And do you know I went on and on, didn't I, about what's overnight with the proving?
Yeah.
Well, that second one that I made, I left it in the kitchen and I monitored how long it had been proving. And when it reached that point where it sort of looked like the other one, it had been proving for 6 hours. So the one that I made on the show had 12 hours, but then I made one that had 6 hours and they were both equally as lovely.
So 6 hours. Boom.
So any time between 6 and 12 hours, perfect.
That's a good... you could forget about it, couldn't you? You could watch a couple of films and still come back. And
Easily, yeah.
all that. And there's still piping to come. Yes,
Oh, gosh.
for the first time ever in the history of the show, Kay will be piping.
I don't normally get out the piping bag.
But as you said... Well, you've never got out of the piping bag.
No.
As you said at the start of this series, you're aiming for...
Yeah, and it went well. It went okay. You'll see. You'll see.
find out
You'll
later.
see.
Now.
You don't need a piping.
It's time for me to ask Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
Right. I've got a couple of things here to show you. The first is I finished my speckly socks that I was knitting. So if you remember, these socks, I dyed up this yarn and it was inspired by some yarn that I saw that had been dyed up by Addie from Ruby and Roses. And it was Taylor Swift themed and I just loved it. And so I thought I'm just going to have a go at dyeing up some myself because I explained before that I did try to order some and anyway, I didn't. But also I think the wait time for that yarn was really long, which, that's fine. That's just how she had to work it. But I just thought, well, I can dye it myself. I'm just going to give it a little go. So I just dyed up this one skein just for me. And knit Bryony a pair of socks. So it's got lipstick red up here and then just a plain sock in this lovely speckly yarn. So I did have, I think I've got about 42-ish grams left over, plus the mini. But what I'm going to do is dye up, the next time I dye some yarn, I'm going to dye a mini that's in the bright fluorescent fuchsia. And I'm going to knit some shorty socks for me using cuffs, heels and toes with the bright pink and then the leftovers for the sock. And I've got plenty to do it that way. So that's really cool. And Bryony gets to have her Taylor Swift socks when she gets home from school today. So they're fantastic.
The next thing that Kay's got to show you is unbelievably exciting. Because whilst you're releasing a pattern to celebrate our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
You've also, for our Bakery Bear patrons, designed a collection within a collection.
Yes.
Within our Platinum collection that we release every year. And these 3 designs, the collection within the collection, all pick up on sort of key elements of things that we do.
Yes.
And it's a special sort of celebratory collection.
Yes.
To celebrate our 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
And the first pattern in that collection is...
the pop socks. So the pop socks will be going out today, the 1st of March.
Oh my goodness.
So patrons will be getting this pattern.
At 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
There you go, 5 p.m. today. So this, as you can see, is a 2-colour sock. And then it's got this cute little sort of detail at the colour change. It's really sweet. And yeah, just needs 2 colours. So these socks came about because the 2 colours I've used, as you can see, I dyed these colours. And when I was planning out the colours, when I drew the little picture, I put P-O, P-O, P-O for pink and orange. And then I saw it spelt pop down the sock. And then I'm like, we do a pop show, and then that led on to the whole thing, really. But I think these would be perfect for... Actually, it was one of our patrons who said this in our Facebook group. that they would be perfect for like school socks. So school colours, I think particularly in the States, school colours are usually 2 colours. So you could make school socks for your kids or grandkids.
Or team socks.
Or team socks, or Harry Potter socks, you know, for each of the house colours would be perfect as well. So yeah, these socks will be going out, like I say, today. Very
I think
exciting.
it's worth mentioning, actually, because you sort of referenced the 10-year anniversary. The only reason why we're having a 10-year anniversary is because of our Bakery Bear patrons.
Yes.
Because it was a year later we were going to stop the show. Anyone who saw episode 24 in the year of 24, episode 24 came in 2 parts. In the first part, we thought we were going to have to stop because we couldn't do the show and do a job and eat. And sadly, eating is important. And the feedback we got was just overwhelming. And it was a suggestion from a viewer who said, you should start a Patreon. So we did. We started a Patreon a year later. It was 2015. And this became our job. And over the last 9 years since starting the Patreon community, we've built up and built up and built up all the things that we do. So now, you know, when you watch the segments that we do, like Case Cooking segment you just saw the first part of, it's like something that you would see on the telly. And similarly, thank you all so much for the lovely feedback you gave England, a castle nation. Even with the bad sound, again, you know, we're aspiring to produce things which are as good as, you know, you would see anywhere. Sometimes we might not quite reach those peaks, but you have to bear in mind that when I'm out filming England, the Castle Nation is just me.
It is.
I don't have a sound man with a big mic.
No. And a lot of people ask this question, and, you know, and I think a lot of people actually have implied that they didn't believe that Dan did it by himself. And
it is just me.
I can assure you that Dan is by himself when he does those shows.
So without our patrons, there would be no show. So that's the reason why Kay has done this extra special collection to thank our patrons. We've been doing lots of things through this year, actually. You know, every year we do wonderful events. We've just done Valentine, and we've got I'm so excited about this. The Summer of Stitching this year. Yes. The Summer of Stitching is coming up, and that's just going to be spectacular.
Summer of Stitching this year is Jane Austen themed.
Amazing.
So we'll have a knitted design, and we'll also have some sewing as well. And I think it's going to be a hand-sewn piece. So we'll be working through both of those together through the summer. Yeah.
So our patrons get tons and tons and tons of additional video content and patterns and all sorts of things. And the whole reason why I sort of picked up on this was you mentioned how we live in a world where everything seems to go up in price. Well, our patron levels have not increased in price since the day that we started. We're so proud of that. We worked so hard on the model, on the business model that we were starting. We really believed that, you know, we should hopefully not have to increase prices, and we haven't as yet.
No.
So please, if you enjoy the show, come and help us for the next 10, 50, 100 years.
I'd like to think that, but, you know.
That is the end, isn't it, of what's off your needles? So I think it's time that we got back, because I'm desperate to see how's the piping going to go. Let's return to more of Kay's Classic Bakes.
Welcome back, everybody, to Kay's Classic Bakes. So we left our delicious loaf having its second proof. So we're ready now to add the hot cross bun crosses onto the top, and then we can get it in the oven for its bake. Right, so our loaf is proved, it's over there, but before I bring it over, what we need to do is we need to make the kind of paste, it is a paste really, that we put on top to make the crosses. So all we need to do for that is, it's just a flour and water paste, that's all it is. So in my little bowl here, I've got 2 tablespoons of water, and I'm going to add to that 25 grams of the spelt flour to make a kind of thick paste. There we go. So let's give that a mix. And this is where I'm going to bring in my piping bag and hope for the best, really. Let's see what happens. So we're just stirring these two together until it just becomes smooth. We just want to get rid of the lumps. That looks fine. So what I've done before is I've just got a teaspoon like this, and you just lift it up and then drizzle it across. But I found that it drops like big lumps of it, and it doesn't quite look as pretty as I would like it to look. So we're going to go with the piping bag this time. So I've got the bag here, and all I'm going to do, I'm not putting a nozzle on or anything like that. I'm just going to trim off the end. We don't need a nozzle for this. How do I get it in there? Shall I roll this down? All of you experts out there are going to be laughing at me because I don't do all of this fancy piping business when I make cakes. I'm just going to pour it. Ah, that works. So I'll just keep going till I've got most of it in there, because I don't find you need all of this anyway. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off the end and then just squeeze it back into my bowl and see how thin of a line that makes. Let's see. Oh, that seems okay, doesn't it? That seems okay. So before I do this, I need to just tell you that my oven is preheating, and the recommended temperature for this recipe is 180 degrees C if it's a non-fan oven, and 160 degrees C if it's a fan oven. Now, I do have a fan oven, but I find that when I go with that lower temperature, when it recommends, a fan temperature, it never is quite hot enough for my oven. So I've actually baked this before on a temperature of 175 degrees C. But you know your ovens. So here is our delicious, look at that. How exciting does that look? So we've still got those individual hot cross buns there, but it really has risen up and it looks fantastic. So all we need to do is make a cross on each one. So we can do this really by going all the way down, and then across like that. So wish me luck. Anybody would think I was doing surgery, wouldn't they? The way I'm going on about this. Oh, I'm just gonna go for it. I think it's a. Oh no! Don't squish too hard. Don't squish too hard. Right. Oh my. Oh, it's wibbly. Right. Concentrate. But okay, no, it's a bit wibbly, but I think it's okay. Right. I'm gonna use my hand. Should I do it quicker? Oh no, I don't. Oh, maybe quicker is better. Oh no, don't laugh. Oh, right, okay, it's all right, isn't it? It's all right. I'm sure you can forgive me my wibbly crosses. Oh, you see, that's a bit better. Oh, now you see I should have gone faster. It's all okay. Oh no, that was a bit blobby at the end. I got a bit excited. Look, it's all right, isn't it? It's okay. I think that looks good. That was stressful. Right. So now I'm going to put it in the oven for 35 minutes. So set your timer. 35 minutes, and then we're going to do something else right at the very end. So I'm going to pop that in 35 minutes. Right, so our loaf has been baking for 35 minutes now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip it out of the oven, and I've got here an egg yolk, just one egg yolk mixed up in a little bowl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it out of the oven, and then I'm quickly going to give it a little glaze on top. Don't go mad with the egg because you don't want it to sort of puddle anywhere. We're just going to put a light glaze on the top, and that's going to add a bit of extra colour and also make it shine, which is just so fun. Oh, it smells so good. So here we go. So what I'm going to do now, just get a little pastry brush and just go over the top. Like I said, don't let it puddle down the sides if you can help it. Don't worry if it touches the side of the tin because it's easy to clean off. So just a light covering all the way over.
And like I said, this is just going to give a beautiful shine and adds a bit of extra yolky sort of colour. Gives that golden, yellowy golden look. So I'll do this and then back in the oven for just 5 minutes, and then will be done. And when you get it out of the oven, turn it out onto a wire rack straight away and then let it cool. I like to let it cool for about 45 minutes or an hour if I'm going to eat it straight away. That just means that it firms up just slightly, but it's still nice and warm. If you want to eat it hot, you can obviously just let it cool completely down and have it cold. That's perfect. Back in the oven, 5 minutes. So our delicious loaf is baked and it's all ready to be tasted. So it's time to cut ourselves a lovely slice and sit down and give it a try.
This looks amazing. Oh my goodness, that is a triumph. Where's mine?
It's over here. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm starving actually.
He's starving.
I am indeed. This is just spectacular. And one of each.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, so a bit of toasted.
Yes.
And a bit of plain. But do you know what?
Half and half.
I like it both ways, to be honest. I think both.
I haven't tried it toasted.
Well, toasted is reminiscent for me of toasted tea cakes from when we were kids.
Absolutely.
Let's give it a go.
Which one are you going for first?
Toasted, yeah, because I've not had it fresh toasted, to be honest. Not straight out of the oven toasted. Oh, it's gorgeous. What's so great about this is there's not a lot of fruit.
Amazing.
There's not a lot of fruit in it.
No.
And I know that a lot of people get offended by dried fruits, but the thing is though that there's virtually nothing in there. It's like a smattering, a hint. It's an ingredient.
It's not a lot of fruit for the amount of loaf.
It's like saying you don't like mushrooms, for example.
Yeah.
But then eating them no problem.
In a bolognese.
In a bolognese.
Yes. So I'm going to try the non-toasted.
Yeah, I know. That's my favourite.
Is it?
Yeah. Hands down. Granted, after a few days, you're probably going to want to toast it. But
Well, I think for the first 2 days, you're fine eating it like that. And then for days like 3 and 4, toasting all the way.
you're right about that alcohol-y hint.
It's weird,
It's
isn't
got
it?
really yeast.
It just gives a kind of...
For me, it's hoppy.
Yeah, it is a bit hoppy.
It's like the smell of beer.
That's got to be the yeast, hasn't it? And it's because we made that starter and it proved for such a long time.
The crosses look absolutely stupendous.
Well,
There's literally nothing better than this, in my opinion. For me,
it's just completely delicious, and I think it would be just so amazing Easter morning.
What
for your
wins,
breakfast, cup of
hands
tea,
down.
cup of tea.
is because it's spelt. It's so light. I think I could eat the whole thing.
I think
No
you
problem.
could eat the whole thing.
So another complete triumph. I mean,
I'm still eating.
yeah, I'm so looking forward to the rest of the series.
I know. So there we go. That is the very, very hugely delicious hot cross bun loaf. And I can't say enough good things about this and really encourage you more than just to say, oh, please just give it a go, because it's so fantastic. If you like hot cross buns, you're gonna absolutely love this. If you've never had a hot cross bun, I think you will also love it. It's just the most perfect thing, and it's brilliant. You know, you can have it now, today, tomorrow, and then the rest of it you can toast. And I actually prefer it toasted. Dan likes it untoasted, I like it toasted. It's absolutely fantastic and perfectly seasonal. So I hope you all enjoyed that, and I will see you next time for more Kay's Classic Bakes.
Folks, I've witnessed some spectacular things coming out of that kitchen since Kay did her very first baking segment. And we'd referenced, I think, on previous shows, we've not actually said today, it is so poignant and unbelievable that Kay's doing that now when she's talking about our 10-year anniversary, because you did your very first baking segment because I physically couldn't do
that's right.
a segment because I was, really struggling with the chemo.
Yeah.
And so you were like, right, what am I going to do? Right, I know what I'll do. And you came up with What's in Your Oven. Yeah. We actually re-released What's in Your Oven. I remastered them as best I could. And re-released those, and that series is available to our Bakery Bet patrons right now. So you can go back and you can join Kay as she makes Chelsea buns. This, though, is so much... Those Chelsea buns were great.
They were really great.
They were great.
They were really great. But they were way more complicated.
Yes.
And didn't really... I don't think they tasted quite as good as... No.
These are... This. No, these. There's two.
There's two. You didn't see... There is two. You don't see the two.
This is spectacular. It's like...
It's amazing. And, we had some toasted after our lunch yesterday, and it's...
Look.
It's like, it's soft and pillowy and fragrant.
I am not a foodie.
And just delicious and crunchy on the outside, and oh my goodness. It's amazing.
I'm as far from being a foodie as you could be.
Dan isn't a foodie at all.
Apart from with this. This, when I eat this, gives me feelings it shouldn't.
Oh, just so delicious. And you have to butter it. I don't know if you might not be familiar with hot cross buns, but you can. I think traditionally people do toast them. You don't have to toast a hot cross bun at all.
You certainly don't.
No,
I always wanted one untoasted. I was never allowed one. I never had a hot cross bun untoasted until I met you.
Right.
And you just buttered one day.
I gave you permission to have it untoasted.
You didn't give me permission. You just gave it to me. We were out on a picnic.
Oh, right.
And you buttered one, and it was there, wrapped in some cling film.
There you are.
Out it came. Ate it. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so you don't have to toast them, but the thing with the loaf is, for a couple of days it's perfectly lovely untoasted, and then for the couple of days after, toasted. I prefer it toasted. It's heaven. Because I just love that contrast. I love that it's warm, and I love the contrast between the really crunchy outside and then the inside is just fragrant and soft and delicious and yummy.
That's enough of that.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
We've got some left. We're going to have some.
Look, Kay's Classic Bakes is back in April because next time we're back with more England and Castle Nation. The story begins properly as we venture back in time to the Tudor era and we work our way forward through some of the most amazing stories and huge innovations that created the world that we live in today. So it's going to be such a great series, and that continues next time. Right now, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
So Kay has done an update to her jelly roll pattern.
Yes, I have. I spoke about this last time, I think, didn't I? And yeah, I've done the update now. So this is my jelly roll blanket, which was designed for fingering weight yarn. I've now done an update and I've added in a page at the end of the pattern as it was. I've added in a page of written detail, giving you all the information that you need if you wanted to knit a DK weight version. And I also recorded a 15-minute video just talking about the whole thing, and that is in the pattern as well. I thought that just would be fun because I know a lot of people like to see something to sort of visualise it. So I've added that in too. So if you purchased, I should say, the pattern on Ravelry, then you will have had an email to tell you that an update has been done, and you can just go along, download the new pattern, and there it is for you. If you purchased it on Love Crafts, then there's no facility to do that, unfortunately. I have changed the pattern, so I've put the new one in, so anybody who buys it now will get the new pattern, with that additional information in there. But I can't send out an update. There's no way for me to do that on Love Crafts. But that being said, I would say, very few people proportionally buy patterns on Love Crafts from me. Most people use Ravelry. So I think most of you will just be able to download an update.
Cool. Our radio show is back next week. We're going to be talking about books. The question is, real books, audio books, or no books at all?
Imagine that.
I know.
A world with no books.
I know. We're going to talk about, because, you know, we're living in a world where books are becoming, certainly with young people, they're becoming less and less popular, which is slightly worrying. Other young people, maybe not so much.
Not our daughter, certainly. She's a book addict, always has been, always will be, I think.
But it's an interesting question, isn't it? If you're reading a book, do you like a real book? Do you like an audio book? What's the benefit of a real book? What's the benefit of an audio book?
Do you read on a Kindle? Do you read with a real,
we're going to be
paper
talking
book?
through all these things, telling you what we love about each one of those different genres and telling you which ones that we partake in lots of.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading more this year than I ever have.
You are,
and that's
yeah.
all thanks to the inspiration from my daughter Bryony.
Yeah.
And folks, that pretty much is it.
Yes.
So thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, everybody. You're all going to run off now, aren't you? To
Do
the
it.
supermarket, get that spelt flour,
Trust
go
me.
and make that loaf.
Go for it. You're going to love it. And we'll see you in 2 weeks with a brand new episode
Yes.
of England, a Castle Nation.
See you soon, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Who's it sitting and knitting? It's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern and get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your